Hello everyone, welcome to ZK Live. This is episode 45. It's going to be the Q&A. It's Sunday night. We just finished the marketing and sales course at ZK Finishing School. That's why I have the logo up behind me. It's on our new TV that we were using because we were doing a lot of screen sharing and going deep into marketing, social media marketing, but a lot of just like how to have a clear idea of who our ideal customer is and how to serve our ideal customer better. So I thought it would be mostly centered on social media marketing, but it turned out that most of the time we ended up spending was on just our general marketing plan. And then the second day we focused on how we're going to put that onto social media as one of the outlets for what we're doing. But as I was seeing, I think it's very important. I know in my business, we have a very clear idea of who our ideal customer is, our ideal client. And I've built the company to serve our ideal client perfectly, hopefully. And then also the same thing with our employees. How do we bring in and attract people who fit that marketing goal that we're trying to do for our clients, also to our employees? So it was a great weekend. I'm definitely I'm stumbling over my words. I'm a little tired. A lot of mental energy was used to go over everything. We had some great students. A couple guys came back their second time. They'd been to the Fine Paints of Europe training. And now I think they have a much better marketing plan to help them go out and sell and market to their ideal client and not just taking on passively whatever comes their way. I think for a long time I just waited for the phone to ring and I didn't understand the importance of marketing. In fact, I scoffed at the idea of marketing or sales. I just thought if you do a perfect paint job, the world will come find you, and that's all you'll ever need to do. And in my experience, that's not very effective. It's much more effective to proactively determine who is my ideal client and then proactively go at them and market toward them and build a company around serving them, and as well as build a company around the type of employees that will best serve them and fit our company culture. So it was a great weekend. We have some questions we're going to answer tonight. We're going to talk about some of the things that we went over. But bear with me. My brain is a little fried. Last finishing school, I didn't do, actually both so far I've not done live at the end because it's just a really long weekend. But I wanted to get on here for at least an hour, answer some questions, talk about the class, the school, what we're kind of trying to do. Because I know everyone is very excited to come and learn how to apply Fine Paints of Europe at a high level. And that is awesome. And it's really fun. And we can add a lot of value and save people a lot of time and a lot of money by getting them up to speed. But if you don't have a clear idea of who your target market is and you haven't built a company around serving that target market, then being able to apply the coding at a high level is not nearly as effective when you don't have the market to sell it to. So we spent a lot of time working on competitive advantages and honing in. Caesar's down here at the bottom, MFC Construction. We had a great weekend. Super intelligent, motivated people who I think you guys can talk to all of them separately, but I think that from what I heard, the feedback was really strong. I felt really good about it. Going into the first class, you're always a little nervous. I knew I have a lot of value to add, but you've never done it. It's hard. I've talked to a lot of people, but once we got started, it became very clear. I did have a plan of how we were going to go about it, and we spent a lot of time working on each. We had 5 companies here this weekend, working with each of the owners on what makes you special. I think in business, the first thing is, what is your competitive advantage? Why would somebody hire you versus another company? And as you, at least in my experiences, I honed that more and more. I was able to very clearly understand in my mind's eye, like, who is my target audience, and then do everything with a very concentrated focus on that audience and on those clients. And then when clients didn't quite fit that, I was able to more easily walk away or tell them, point them in another direction, or not work for clients who were not our ideal clients. Because for a number of reasons, that's not good, right? It's very hard, if not impossible, to be very profitable when you can't be as profitable when you work for your not ideal client as you can when you work for your ideal client. My ideal client is willing to pay a premium for our services because our competitive advantages align with their needs and desires. So they're not going to be as price sensitive because they want what we have to offer. And so, or they see our price as a good value because that's what they value. And we talked a lot about that with everyone here, determining sort of what makes you special. And then from there, we spent a lot of time understanding how can we communicate that to people, so we don't end up fielding lots of phone calls from people who are not our ideal client, and even worse, doing work for clients who are not our ideal client. I spent a lot of my career just doing whatever work came my way passively, and it definitely slowed my growth to where we are today. And if I had had a class like this or had thought the way I do now about my company, I think we would have gotten to where we are now much quicker. Let's see. Joshua, can you put that question in down at the bottom? There's a question mark at the bottom. You can put your questions in there, and that way I don't lose it as we go, and I can pull it up and we can talk about it for a while. So it was actually really tremendous. We had a lot of fun. We laughed a lot. I think by the end of today, everyone was pretty exhausted. We had used a lot of mental energy, being creative, trying to think from above, looking down on our businesses, and not being, when we're working in our business, we get so tunnel vision on like the details, the micro part, as Gary Vee says. You work on the macro first, and then the micro. Once you get the macro plan put together, all the micro things, all the little decisions are much easier to make, and they're much easier to have all align when you have a big picture plan. And you're not just reacting to whatever phone call comes in or whatever person says, hey, I'd like to do some business with you. We try to be much more intentional about who we market to, who we work for, and then making it so we have competitive advantage, so that we have efficiencies that add more value than somebody else, so that we can extract that value in profit. So I think it was a great exercise for people to spend the whole weekend thinking outside of their company and seeing it from above, to sort of focus in on what makes me special, why my company. And then from there, once you've determined what makes you, we had companies that were very small, 2-person companies, right? They have a competitive advantage where the owner is going to be on site every day. Certain clients are going to love that, and they're going to want to hire that person over my company where I'm not going to be on site every day doing the work. And then vice versa. There's certain clients that value a team and a larger organization over the 2 people being on site every day, and those are my clients. And understanding who your ideal client is and then marketing to them, I think, is very important, because it allows you to be more efficient, which means more profitable. So I'm sorry, but my brain is kind of fried. It was just so much this weekend, but everybody walked away with clear competitive advantages written out, a clear list of types of posts on social media that would highlight the things that make them special. And we went through Instagram bios, so look for a few of these guys to have a clearer vision for who their company is, and that will show in their Instagram bio. When one of our clients goes to look at our Instagram bio, we have potential clients, we have 5-10 seconds to communicate very clearly to them what we stand for. And if that messaging is not well thought out and doesn't have a lot of continuity to it, people, if they can't put their finger on who you are and what you stand for, it's going to be a lot harder to do business with them. At least the best clients, right? It's going to be a lot harder to get maximum value from that client in that relationship if they don't trust you and they don't really know who you are. that's where we become more of a commodity, and they're just going to look for the cheapest price. But we don't want to be the cheapest price. We want to be the best value for our ideal client. So it was a great weekend of spending time going over that stuff. We talked a lot about, the 4 quadrants and the, what do we need to do now to just get stuff done. And anytime we can spend time doing things that will pay off in the future, we want to be able to have a list of things already ready that we can work on when we have the time to get outside of our business and actually work on it and not be in it. I know for me it was huge. Somebody asked me, like, sort of what was the big turning point in my business, and one of the major inflection points was when I stopped painting every day, and I was able to step back and look at it from above. And you get a lot of bad habits when you start painting the way I did, and you just, oh, you're going to pay me to paint? This is amazing. I've never had anyone pay me to paint. Only my bosses. I never had a client. So it's very exciting. And oftentimes when you're a new company, the people who are excited to work with you they're not the best clients. They're people who are looking for the best price, or maybe looking to take advantage of a young entrepreneur. So I think we had a lot of fun. We definitely got a lot of clarity. A lot of people had much more clarity, I hope, in where they're going. And when you have, I have a very clear idea of where I'm going with my company, and have for a while. And that really helps the day-to-day decision making. When you know, what's the goal here? Where are we trying to go? Let's push in the same direction every day, and not, just react to the world. It's hard to be proactive all the time. It's hard to get out of the mode of reactivity. I'm guilty of it often. Just reacting to whatever happens. And the more I can spend time over here being proactive, I think it's much better for my company and for the people in it and for my clients. So it was definitely a big success. I was a little hesitant. There's always those like jitters coming into the first class. Same thing happened with the FP training, the first FP training. I was a little weary of how it would go. I had a good itinerary planned out, but until you do it for the first time, it's always a theory and it's an unknown. So now that we've done it, I feel really good about even our next class as we go deeper and have a more refined plan on how to extract people's competitive advantages and help them build a sales and marketing model. We also had a friend of mine now. I met him on a podcast. We've become friends. He lives locally to me. This is going to be backwards, but I read his book after being on the podcast with him, and I highly recommend this book. It's called The 7 Secrets to Selling More by Selling Less by Alan Langer. I read this book, and a lot of the things I was doing already and had to learn the hard way, and some of the things I've added to my approach in the sales process. Our sales process is really an interview both directions, right? The client's interviewing me, I'm interviewing them to see if we're going to be a good fit. And taking that approach to sales versus just trying to force a sale every time, it's huge. We don't want to be all things to all people, because that's not a very efficient business model, right? And for a long time, that's what I did. Sorry. Another episode sponsored by my favorite seltzer, LaCroix Limoncello. I don't know. I did read 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. It's a great book. There's a lot to be said for just stepping back and thinking about these things. And really looking at what are my strengths as a person, what are the strengths of my company, and how can I leverage those in my marketing and really hone in on those things. And the more efficient I could be at that, the more value I can add to the market. And the more value you add to the market, the more you can extract in the form of profit. So we are working to be a more profitable company every day. We have a very clear vision of who our ideal client is. I think our marketing, Seth Godin said, your marketing is what you tell the world. And maybe through words, it's through posts, it's through how you carry yourself, it's through image, the people who work for you. All of those things are your marketing. what are you saying to the world? And for a long time, I was not thinking like that. I was thinking about, how do I put out a better paint job? And the paint job it's important to have the paint job be of quality, but that kind of has to happen. So once you have your systems down to apply a quality paint job, how do you build the business to bring in the clients who value what I offer? Really fun thought experiments. We had people sharing ideas back and forth. We would have a concept or an idea that we were trying to put into words for like an Instagram bio, and everyone would be able to chime in, and we were going to the thesaurus. That's a fun thing to say, the thesaurus. We were doing a lot of that, and experimenting with, how do words look? Do they communicate what I stand for? So if you come to my Instagram page, do you quickly understand what I'm all about? And the faster we can do that, the faster we can get our ideal clients and not have to field as many phone calls for people who aren't our ideal clients. Sequoia Painting said, is there a way for any of us can get some of the information you guys went over in this particular class? At this point, we're really just going to do in-person classes. I've had some people ask about Zoom classes. Based off of we're now 3 classes in. These weekends are so valuable to be in person. Everyone comes with a negative COVID test. We wear our face shields. We try to be as safe as possible. But when you're face to face with 5 other people for this social media, for the marketing and sales class, and when it's 12 companies for the ZK Finishing School class on FPE training, when you're face to face with these people and we have these conversations, I've talked to a lot of people now that have come. No one believes that we could have nearly the quality of conversation and idea sharing that happens in real life if we were doing this on Zoom. I think what we did this weekend, could it theoretically be done through Zoom? Like, we didn't work with our hands on paint samples, so we could theoretically do this remotely through Zoom. But I think it's really difficult to connect with any of you that have done Zoom classes probably know how hard it is to connect with people, never mind a group of people, for an entire weekend through a Zoom course or through the medium of Zoom or online video conferencing. So as of right now, we're going to continue to have these classes at my shop in Rhode Island. And until something changes, we may look to put some of these things online, but we're just nowhere near having online courses like that. I think we have the demand. People love coming out to the shop. I think we had a great time. We went out to dinner at my favorite restaurant in Providence Saturday night. It's called Persimmon. We had a delicious meal. Talked about life, our experiences, business stuff, just developing that fraternity, if you will, that group of people where we're all thinking the same. Like, friendships were made this weekend and have been made every weekend so far. We're actually going to be planning, we just came up with this idea because a lot of us like to ski. We're going to be planning a ski trip to Maine this winter, assuming everything works out with COVID and we're allowed to. We're going to get a cabin and we're going to all go up there and we're going to spend a weekend skiing and hanging out and talking about painting and the business and all those things, because it's amazing. The quality of human being that we're attracting to ZK Finishing School is really been impressive. And a lot of these people traveled from pretty far, and if you're willing to travel and come to this class and pay to learn, you find out that the other people who come are fairly similar. And so we had a great time. The right painter said I go into a bit unconcerned if they hire us or not. We talked about that a lot. I think that's very important. We're looking to see if it's a win-win, right? We're not trying to force anything down anybody's throat, and because that's never fun for a number of reasons. And it's really difficult to extract maximum value or give maximum value when you've forced the interaction. But this book, back to this book, Alan Langer, sales expert, is very, very good at sales. and spent a lot of time thinking about the sales process and had a lot of at-bats. He was selling Anderson windows, and so they were feeding him lots of leads, and he had a lot of at-bats with in-home sales, which is essentially what we do. We go to somebody's house and we try to sell them our services. And so there's a lot of really great principles in the 7 secrets to selling more while selling less. I gave everybody a book to go home with because I read this book and it really resonated with me because it's direct. It was written by a guy who does what we do. He was going into people's homes, still does, and was selling Anderson windows. And so he gets the trades, he gets the sales process. Anderson Windows is not the cheapest window out there. He was selling windows, so then he was selling windows at a higher price point and doing really, really well. He was their number 1 salesperson for many years, and now he's a consultant for sales. And so that was awesome to have him come. He came for about an hour. We have some fun inside jokes after this weekend. We had a lot of laughs. It was really good. Chroma Custom Painting said, I hope to come back for another class. In person is definitely good, and the connections you make are invaluable. Alex from Chroma Painting came to the last CK Finishing School class for FP training. It was awesome. From a client point of view, how can we know if your services are a good match? Well, hopefully our marketing, every company's marketing, has done a good job in communicating what it is we offer. Like, why? Like, we went into detail with every person here this weekend. And it's like, what is it that makes you different and special? The attention to detail, the obsession on the quality, right? Some companies are really, really into the quality experience and being very honest and transparent. And so we want to make our marketing show that. And some people were more about one of the guys does a lot of historic restoration. He really loves historic buildings, and we wanted to clearly show that in his marketing that he loves doing this type of historic work. It was really fun, but mostly it's communicating what makes you special. But boy, am I tired. My brain feels like mush. So let's just get into the questions. Let's see. Here's a good question from DiBiase Painting or DiBiase Painting. Hitting a front door with some FPE Eco Brilliant. We are leaving it in place. Should we brush or spray? It's going to be navy blue. All right. There's a lot of, when you ask a question like this, I think budget and expectations are huge. I mean, I don't think it's very fair to sell a project without detailing how you're going to accomplish that project when it comes to spray versus brush. Like, you don't even tell them what spray you're going to use. But a sprayed finish versus a brush finish are definitely different aesthetics. So first off, I would talk with the client to find out what's most important to them. What's the aesthetic that they're after? Do they want a more traditional brushed finish, or do they not care about the traditional brush finish and they want that sprayed finish? Or if they're indifferent, we'll pretend like they're indifferent in this case. Let's talk about budget and expectation. Budget then, because if you want to spray a door in place at a high level, I think it's going to take much more time, or more, let's say more time, arguably, but maybe not, than if you were to brush. And then you have to look at what kind of equipment do you have, what are you most comfortable with as far as applying, and this is what we teach at finishing school. Which one have you done samples with that you're most confident in? I would highly recommend not going to a client's home having never used Eco Brilliant before and just painting one of their doors. That's just not best practice. Fine Paints of Europe is a line of paint that's very, very high quality. And in the parameters that they use to determine how to make their paint are concentrated on performance way over ease of use. Like, they're just not designing their paint with as far as I'm aware, to be super user friendly. That's not the first thing that they're looking to do. First, they're looking to put out a very high quality, long lasting finish. And it's kind of on us as the painter to learn how to apply it at a high level. I think that's not the case with a lot of production of domestic paint. If you go to, I think, Benjamin Moore and Sherwin-Williams, when they're designing their paints, they're spending a lot of time designing the paint to be easy to apply. They have wide margins for error because that fits their target market better. So when you're switching from a domestic paint to fine paints of Europe, I think you need to be aware that that paint is not going to just be as easy as switching the product and doing everything the same. It's just not, in my experience. You really need to spend some time with that product, make the full scale samples. I don't mean like a full scale door, but like if you're going to spray a door vertically, you should spray a sample vertically. And if you're going to spray that sample vertically, it should be primed and prepped in the same way, the same manner that you're going to be doing that door. So we just finished the best gloss sealing that we've ever done. We worked with Jessica Allred. I'm going to be posting pictures. Phil posted pictures. This sealing is phenomenal. I am so proud of our team and Jessica and the teamwork that we had as companies to achieve this insanely high level gloss sealing. But I will tell you that in order to do that, we've spent a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of money practicing and building our skill set and trying out equipment. And then, even with all that said, when we get on site, we did a full scale mock-up. Some of you may have seen Phil's post. We had a full scale mock-up of a piece of drywall that we did. Everything that we did to that ceiling, we did to that piece of drywall along the way. So that when it came time to spray finish coat, the stakes are incredibly high. Anyone who's sprayed fine paints gloss knows, especially when you're in when you're on a very high, I just said it, when you're in a penthouse at an extremely luxury high rise. You don't want to be making mistakes in the finish coat. Finish coat does not sand well. If you have drips or sags, it doesn't sand out well. It requires lots of backtracking, many hours, many thousands of dollars of repairs. So when we go to spray that ceiling, we want to make sure that we've done our due diligence. We test viscosity of our paint. We test everything. And then we do a full scale mock-up, and we sprayed a sample board upside down in the room that we were going to do it with the same temperature, the same humidity, the same conditions. We simulated that ceiling in real life. We simulated that ceiling and sprayed our sample board, and it was real life. And we try to break the paint. We try to put too much paint on. What does the spray technique look like that puts too much paint on? What is the spray technique that puts not enough on? Let's find the parameters that we're going to play within. You don't have to do that with Scuff-X, right? Generally, Scuff-X was designed to be applied easily. The stakes are not nearly as high. So when you're talking about doing this FPE Brilliant, this Eco Brilliant, which I would say is one of the hardest products to apply at a high level I've ever experienced. Eco Brilliant, if you want it to look really good, like some of the best guys are doing, you're not going to just show up and start painting. It's just doesn't work like that. So I would encourage you to do the tests in your shop or in your basement, wherever, and get used to the product. And then at that point, if you're going to spray the door, you're going to need to mask the entire surround. Looks like DiBliasi just came on in time. So we're answering your question now. The answer to your question is budget expectations, client expectations, and we would always do a full-scale sample, meaning a vertical piece, not a full door, but do a realistic sample and show it to the client. Do not show up on that job site having never used Eco Brilliant and attempt to paint that door if your client has a high level of expectation and is paying a significant amount of money. If you're just switching it out and you want to experiment on client's door, I still wouldn't recommend that. I don't think experimenting on clients' projects is a great idea. I would encourage you to take a sample board, prime it the way you're going to prime your door, and paint it the way you plan to paint it, and then see what it looks like. That's really the boring answer, is simulate that before you go to the substrate and before you go to a client's home. If you're going to spray it, you're going to need to do a lot of masking, right? You're not going to close the door and spray the door. Don't do that. Like, that's not high level painting. You can't have the door closed and spray it and expect an awesome result. You're going to need to mask off one side of that door and one edge. You're going to need to mask off an entire space around it, make an enclosure, so that when you spray that door, you spray the whole front and the whole edge. So that's a lot of masking. But if the client wants to spray to finish, that's what we would do. If you're going to brush it, brushing eco and having it look good is not an easy thing to do. This is not Advance or ScuffX or you name it. It requires practice. It probably requires some extender. And I think that you're going to be disappointed if you grab some Eco Brilliant and a brush and attempt to apply that to a door the way you would with other products. It's definitely going to let you down, and probably your client as well. So that's my answer, especially with the dark colors. Navy blue, oh man. We just did a Eco Satin navy door and had to redo it because the brush strokes were just too... In a perfect world, yes, if I was going to spray Eco thin with heat, we had great success with that. And that's how we would do it in the future. Yes. But again, do that test. Do me a favor, do that test. Eric Reason coined that term. Test, don't guess. It's beautiful. And it's a fundamental piece of what we do. At high level coating application, the stakes are too high to just wing it. And these coatings are not designed to be super easy to spray. They're designed to be high performance products. So you have to take that into account too. Let's see, somebody said something earlier. Would like to get the information you guys discussed this weekend. I mean, man, you got to come to the class. You got to come to the class to get the information. That's kind of how that works. Let's see, who else? Ooh, this is a great question. Excellent remodeling. What mistake taught you the most? I mean, I've made thousands, hundreds and thousands of mistakes in my career, in my business. Never mind just painting in general, but when I started my business since then, it's been many, many, many mistakes, because I'm always pushing the limits and trying to get better, and we're just trying to trend up as a company. That's really one of the big takeaways from this weekend is your success comes from being a little bit better than you were yesterday, and everyone who came to the class is obviously trying to get better, and so really that's what we're looking at, is get a little bit better. So I'm not worried about making mistakes. We try to minimize the risk of the mistakes that you do make, but definitely some of the biggest mistakes I've made have been some of the greatest lessons I've ever learned. So I can tell you, I've told this story before. I would go back to the best paint job that I ever applied at the time. And at the time I did it, it was it was by far the best paint job I'd ever done. As an employee and as a company, we did an interior new construction remodel kind of thing at a house. It was a fairly big project, and it was really high level carpentry. And so we had done sample boards to the client, and we got the sample signed off on. It was and we made this trim look. I mean, I would be as proud today to call that a ZK painting job as I was 5 6 years ago. It was tremendous, and multiple coats of primer. That's the key to any good trim paint job, right? Anytime you're painting trim, especially new trim, really we're going to use 2 coats of primer every time, right? A single coat of primer on a trim package is just never going to give you, it's not going to give you enough body to sand down to make everything perfect. And this trim package that we did was perfect. I mean, we went over it with a fine tooth comb. Now, granted, we were using a satin white, so we didn't do 5 coats of primer, but we did everything. 3 rounds of nail hole filling. It looked like all the trim. It was a lot of paneling, and it looked like that trim had been glued up, like it was all cabinet grade finish on all the trim. Everything was perfect. The joints where the wainscoting met the trim, that little thing was caulked flawlessly. I mean, obsessive craftsmanship. It was phenomenal. I'm still very proud of how that job turned out aesthetically. The paint job is the best ever. Well, no, that's ridiculous. But the paint job was really, really high level. But the mistake that I made, and I learned from, was my customer's experience of that paint job must have been hellish. It was terrible. I spent very little time focused on the customer experience. The client was in and out of the home over the course of time. It was an addition, so they still had half the house they were living in back and forth, as it was a summer house. But they would be there, and the wife would be in the house at 9:30 at night while I was sanding trim and probably listening to music, like crazy stuff. Just so, I mean, today I would be horribly embarrassed to behave like that. But I was singularly focused on producing a high quality paint job. And I wrote it off like, well, we're doing a great job. So yeah, I'm here till 9:30, but that's what it takes to get a great paint job. So like, I didn't even think they'll deal with it. I was like, that's just what it takes. They're going to love me, because when it's done, that trim is going to be flawless. So that project took longer than I ever thought. Spent many, many hours. We delivered an absolutely unbelievable paint job. But I was in their home late at night. We took longer than we ever thought. And so what happened was, we finished the job. It looked beautiful. The client was happy enough, right? They paid us. They were good. But then, I don't know, a year later, the client remodeled the rest of the house, and we didn't get a phone call to bid that project. And which I didn't know about. That's fine. You don't know. It's whatever. Until I got a phone call from the contractor saying the other painter that we hired did a horrible job. The trim doesn't look anything like what you guys did before. I need you to come in and bail us out. And I was crushed, right? The paint job I was most proud of in the world, we didn't get a call back to do the second phase of the project. We didn't even get called to be brought in to estimate the project. And that spoke volumes. Like, yeah, right, spoke volumes. That was a very, sorry, my brain is, that was a very impactful and a turning point. And to say that I turned around the next job and like fixed the problem would be a lie. I'm sure I didn't. But it was this data point, this very strong data point of, hey, clients value way more than the paint job. And it taught me to start to think, to put myself in the shoes of clients and see the process through their eyes, and not, does the paint job look good? If the paint job looks good, what's wrong with them? They hired me to paint. They hired me to paint, but they hired a professional that was going to give them a professional experience along with the professional paint job. And so that was so huge for me. A lot of it was a symptom of not having the rest of my stuff together. It's also a symptom of when you're a small company and you're owner and operator, and I was doing the painting and I had a couple of people who worked for me, right? Oftentimes when you're in that situation, it's so easy to just throw more hours at a project, right? It's so easy to just stay late. That's how you make up for your mistakes. And then it's easy to sleep in a little bit the next day because you stayed late. And now you're behind the 8 ball again, and now you stay late again. And it became this just like, you know, nothing about it was professional. Nothing is how we would handle that job today, except for the execution of the actual paint job. Clients care. My ideal client. Some clients don't. The ones who don't want to pay as much, they'll deal with your crap. There are clients, especially on like exteriors. Exteriors, like there's a lot of companies who make a living giving decent paint jobs with decent customer service experiences with great pricing. Because clients are just like, some clients are like, I don't care to have an amazing customer service experience. You're on the outside of my house. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, it's no big deal. But my ideal client cares about a profession. They are willing to pay a little bit more for a great experience that goes to go hand in hand with their great paint job. And it's a horrible lie we tell ourselves that the paint job is all that matters. And that mistake taught me so much, and it continues to inform me on. And we still make those types of mistakes. We do, but we're getting better and better every day, and it's top of mind. You can't just throw more hours at it. You know, I'm on a job now. That's what we're doing now. Granted, we're working normal working hours, but the number of days we've been there is over because we made a mistake, and that's not fair to that client. We've been in their home, taking up space, having to deal with a stranger, you know, not your family. It's no longer your family anymore. So we want to minimize that at all times. We want to always be thinking of the client experience as being I would say it's more important than the paint job. There are many companies who have proven that are very successful, that have proven the model of the client experience being far more important than the paint job. And a lot of us diehard craftspeople might look at those companies and talk crap about them and look down on them because they give subpar paint jobs. But guess what? They give above average customer service experiences. And that's most of the time what the takeaway is how did they feel? Memory is about feeling. How did they remember how they felt throughout that project? They're not looking at the paint job. They don't remember the paint job. The paint job is one piece of the whole house, right? They're going to put carpet down and furniture and art on the walls, and the paint job will slowly fade away with more stuff coming into the room. But that feeling of how they felt when we were in their home never goes away. And you know, it's valuable for me to talk about this stuff because it needs to continue to be top of mind, because it's easy to get caught up in giving someone a great paint job and thinking that, well, that's what they paid me to do. Yeah, I mean, having contractors in your home, like John said, is a very disruptive thing to your home life. Every morning we show up, hey, it's us. We're going to come into your house now and be here all day. I mean, you know, you want to keep that, you want to make that experience as positive as possible. So yeah, that was a huge mistake that taught me quite a bit. Okay. I didn't read this one ahead of time. The paint guy said, I was just at a client's house 2 nights back to back, 13 hours straight each day. Got there at 6, left after dark. Yeah, man. I get that. I've been there. But that's not the answer. And I think that is, that's going to hurt you over time. That's going to hurt you with ideal clients. You know, some people are willing to put up with that. But if you're trying to make more money and charge more for your services, things like that are going to get in the way, right? Going to the next level of charging a little more for what you do, for almost all of us on here, the way to charge more is not to give a better paint job. The way to charge more is to give a better customer service experience. to market better, to sell better. That's the way we charge more, not to paint better. Generally, I would say, generally speaking. I think the customer service, someone that BT Home Finishing said, is customer service more valuable to the customer than the paint job? I think that, yes, because they're assuming that you're a professional painter. You should know how to do the paint job. But here's what I'll tell you. I think that all things being equal, the same paint job, if you give them an amazing customer service experience, gets very little scrutiny. If you do everything right, and you've earned their trust in the sales process, and you've maintained their trust throughout the sales process, throughout the project, they're not going to be going around. They're much less likely to go around with blue tape and put 14 pieces of blue tape on every little imperfection, right? But if you've been staying there late and you've given them a bad customer service experience, they've been listening to your music all day in their house. No one wants to listen to somebody else's music. Come on, we all think we have the best taste in music. So don't blast your music in someone's house. We don't ever want to play music in someone's house. What do we know what they think about music? Hey, if you give a poor customer service experience, I think you're going to get a lot more blue tape, and you're going to have a lot harder time getting that final payment. If you give a great customer service experience, I think you could sacrifice a bit on the quality, all things being equal, and the client would be happier. So if you're going to pick one versus the other, I think it is probably customer service experience. Now, that's for the average client. I mean, obviously, certain clients are going to be different, but for most people, I think that is the case. I understand what you're talking about. The painter guy, he's saying he was supposed to finish 2 weeks ago. That's our only window to complete. The question is, what are you going to do next time to prevent that? That's how I look at it. Every time I make a mistake, I don't, I try not to beat myself up on it. You get about 5 minutes to complain and feel crappy. And then it's like, okay, as a business owner, what am I going to do next time to prevent that mistake from happening again? When you find yourself back there doing another late night and another project over and over again, what is it that you can control? Don't tell me about the client. Don't tell me about the weather. Don't tell me about anything that you can't control. What is it that you can control? Let's get creative, and let's think about what things can I control to prevent that thing from happening. And I guarantee you there's a handful of things you could do. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure that you could sit with yourself, and if you're very brutally honest, you could come up with a handful of things that you could do to prevent that from happening next time. You didn't have a choice this time, but I believe strongly there is something that could be done next time, ahead of time, in the sales process, in the execution process, in the management of your team, in a bunch of different things, right? I'm not saying I don't know what they are, but there's always something we can do. The world is not out to get us. And even if it is, it's not a good idea to think that the world is out to get you. That's a horrible mindset. We talked about mindset a lot this weekend. Mindset's very important. The same exact thing can happen to you, and you can see it through two different lenses and behave differently and get different outcomes from the same exact thing happening to you. I really believe strongly in thinking about and choosing your mindset carefully. It's not always easy, but when problems happen, there's always something you could have done to minimize that pain point. Sometimes it's just don't work for that client. I've had a couple of those where it was like, I should have walked away from that client. That's the answer. The answer is next time, those gut feelings of red flags that I ignored, I need to listen to those. Because you can't make every person happy. Every client is not my ideal client. And so learning, even if it's as extreme as don't work for that client or that type of client when the situation is like that, whatever it may be. If you're a small 2-person company, don't take on projects where the client's top priority is timeline. You don't have the ability to flex people around and throw a couple more people at it and work normal hours during the day, right? The bigger companies have the ability to move people around, and they, like Shoreline Painting, Chris, he wins jobs because of his timelines he has a team of people, and that's one of his competitive advantages, is I can get things done fast. So he can take on those projects, where a 2-person company probably shouldn't. So that's why this weekend we talked a lot about what am I good at, what makes each individual company special, and let's really focus on those and say no to the clients that aren't a good fit for us. Thanks for your question. Thanks for your question. Is anybody listening to Akimbo from Seth Godin? It's one of my favorite podcasts right now, if not my favorite. No, I take it back. It is definitely my favorite podcast. Seth Godin is just a brilliant man. All right, our last question, unless anyone has more. How durable is Renner? 2-part polyurethanes, 2K polys, are just about as durable of a finish as you can possibly put on a surface. They're as durable as Fine Paints of Europe Polylac cured 30 days, or Eco cured 30 days. So that's why we like it. We use them. We use 2K poly in situations where clients can't afford Fine Paints of Europe. Right? We can be significantly less money to refinish a kitchen cabinet job with a 2-part polyurethane water base than we can with a slower drying Fine Paints of Europe product. There's some sacrifices in aesthetics that come with it, but there's not sacrifices in durability. So that's why we feel comfortable. We let them know, like, here's the option for fine paints. This is the most aesthetically pleasing option. This is what we'd recommend. But if you can't afford that and don't want to spend that money, the 2K poly is a great option as far as durability. It's far superior to a pre-cat lacquer, say, which is on the other side of the spectrum. It's better than a conversion varnish. So I think 2K poly has there's a spot in the market where 2K poly is tremendous for certain clients who don't have the budget to go to the next level, but they don't want a pre-cat. With pre-cat, some clients don't have a budget to go to 2K poly, right? We all know those clients, and we haven't done one, but I recently submitted a bid to a client who didn't have the budget for 2K poly or FPE, and so we gave them our lowest option, which is pre-cat lacquer. Someone said, did I need to narrow my question down to a certain product from FPE? Oh, did I not put that up? Oh, I touched it and then I didn't come back to it. Sorry about that. Or did I get distracted? I don't really know. Question regarding FPE, but when spraying using air-assisted airless, can you put that question in the question thing at the bottom? Guys, put your questions, tap the little question mark and type them there. That's so much better. Question regarding FPE. When spraying using air-assisted airless, what is the ratio you thin the product, tip size used, and the temperature of product? All right, Joshua, I love you, man, but I could tell you what mine are. I'm not going to, first of all. We worked really hard to get what works for us. But what I'll tell you is what works for us isn't going to work for you. What works for us is different on every project, depending on the temperature and the humidity, depending on the color, depending on the substrate. There are many, many variables. So it's not as easy as even if I told you what I did on that last project, exactly, you wouldn't be able to achieve what we achieved. The answer is you have to do the work. You have to do the tests. You have to figure out with your setup, with your spray technique, with your environment, with your equipment, what is it that's going to work for you? So the answer is you have to spend the time and the money. You can come to ZK Finishing School and we can speed up a lot of that. We can save you a lot of the time and energy, but we can't shortcut the fact that you still have to do the samples in the environment. So unfortunately the answer there is not a specific answer. I could tell you what I did, but it would almost hurt you more than it would help you. It's much better to, we've done hundreds and hundreds of hours of testing stuff. And that's really the answer is get some paint, get your equipment, get some sample boards, and start testing. Because your conditions are going to be different unless you are in the same town as I am, in the same city. you know, you're going to have different environments. Never mind the inside environments, but practice. I would say definitely practice. We spend a lot of time and energy getting those things to where they are. We teach people the fundamentals of what we do at FPE training, at ZK Finishing School. We save you lots of time and energy and effort, but I can't just give you a formula, copy and paste, and you can. When I hired my consultant the first time, I honestly thought he was going to come out and answer that question. I don't blame you at all for asking, Joshua, because I asked the same question. I thought if you told me the answer, that I would be able to achieve those finishes I was seeing. And when my consultant came out, he dropped the bomb that, hey man, it's not about that. It's about understanding the product and the process and doing the work, the samples of breaking it on both sides and knowing what to look for. And, you know, you have to get the reps in. You know, you just have to get the reps in. It's just one of those things. You can't read about push-ups. You have to do them to get better. Honestly, I think there's a lot to be said for that with what we're talking about. John asked, how are you liking the Wagner setup? Safe to say that we're loving it. We're loving the setup. We're loving everything about it. The one thing that we found is it requires a lot more air than our Kremlin does. And so we've had to, through doing lots of tests, we've learned that we need 2 to 3 compressors to run that Wagner and really feel comfortable about the level of finish that we're able to achieve. But that Wagner gun has a lot of advantages. It's a sweet setup. I will say that it's a sweet setup. Is it a significantly better product and finish? Are you talking about, what are we, I'm sorry. 2K Poly, is that what you're asking about? I think that's what he was asking about. Yeah, I mean, it's a significantly better durability. A 2K Poly over a 2-part product over a standard domestic 1-part is going to be better. You know, pre-cat lacquer is a 1-part product that's fairly inexpensive, that dries really fast. How could it compete with a 2-part product? You know, the theory of it is just these two things can't exist. When they're mixed, they start to harden. You have a pop life. The durability testing and the durability of a 2-part polyurethane is far superior to most 1-part products, FPE notwithstanding. How much info do you know about the Universal Primer from FPE? I know that everyone's loving it. I know I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'm gonna do lots of testing. I'm gonna try to break that paint. I'm gonna find out how I can get it to fail on either end of over application, under application. I'm gonna test the limits of dry times, and we're gonna learn that paint. We're gonna put the work in to learn that primer, and before we ever think about bringing it onto a job site, you know, unless we're gonna cut and roll walls or something like that. I know a lot of people are cutting and rolling walls with it. It's 100% tintable. So even if, I know like plenty of guys, even if the client can't afford Fine Paint's wall paint, or they don't want to use Fine Paint's wall paint, you're able to take that primer and tint it to pitch black. You're able to tint that primer to bright red. So you can get 2-coat coverage with pretty much any color, because now you're taking your primer, you're tinting it to the exact color, and then you can do 1 coat of top coat, and you're there. So that's what we're really excited about, is for walls. We're going to use a lot of that primer on our walls. We're going to experiment with a lot of that primer on other substrates before we ever use it at a full scale. But, you know, I think under eco, for sure, we're going to use a lot of it. It's a very exciting product to be coming out to the market. The painter guy says, how would you handle a GC that is working with the client separately, hence pushing our portion of the job out? I'm confused, I think, a little bit. So the client contracted you to do the painting. The GC was contracted to do construction, and you need to paint that stuff, and the GC is behind on schedule. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm reading from this. That's a really, really tough one, man. Honestly, what I would do is I would make it very clear that the expectations from the client that we had originally are out the window. So anything that I said about timeline when I thought the project would start on X date, if the project no longer starts on that date and is being delayed by a GC, I'm going to very clearly communicate. I'm not going to blame the GC. I'm not going to, talk a bunch of crap about the GC at all. I want the GC to be my friend because we are working together, and I need him to be my friend. You need everyone you're working with. Everyone you're working with, you need to befriend. You don't want to have enemies on a job site. That is very, very dangerous. Too many variables, too many things at stake. Even if it's annoying, you're not allowed to let the guy know it's annoying. You're like, yeah, we're professionals. We're going to treat this guy wonderfully, even if I go home and complain about it to my wife for 5 minutes. That mentality of like, how can we win? How can I help? Blah, blah, blah. But the conversation with the client needs to be everything that we talked about is off the table. If we're talking about an exterior, like we have an exterior project right now that we had planned on finishing by the end of the year. Well, the GC is the contractor that we brought in to do carpentry is finding more and more things to be repaired, and weather's on our side, and we may not be completing that project this year due to things beyond our control. So as soon as I know that, I'm having the conversation with the client. So as soon as your timeline's changed, I would communicate very clearly, and if you're at all worried, in writing with the client that, hey, our timeline is no longer the same. And guess what? I have a business to run. So if I have to leave and fill that slot, guess what? I have to finish that job I filled the slot with. So the day that you are ready for me, I might not be ready to come back. I need you to understand my situation, and that just because the GC finishes next Tuesday does not mean I can show up on Wednesday. I'm not going to sit at home doing nothing from now till next Wednesday waiting for your project to start. I can't do that. So you need to understand, I'm sorry, client, but I might not be able to get there the day after. And if you just assume that the client understands that stuff, I think anytime we assume, it's an issue. And sometimes if you have the ability to be flexible, that's big. I made a mistake recently of being too flexible, and it came back to bite me. So I think you want to be a good partner to the people who are working on site, but you also don't want to do it. You don't want to be a martyr. You want to make sure that your company is the most important thing. The overall well-being of your company is more important than any one client and any one job. And if things were out of your control, you got to reset the plans. The plans have to change when the plans change. And that's nice that you were able to fit it in. But I don't think that you were beholden to fit it in if things outside of your control changed. That's not a reasonable request. Here we go. The Washington Painter. Do you sell a high gloss finish, or does the homeowner or builder want the high gloss finish? Very rarely am I coming in there and selling a high gloss finish to someone who doesn't already want it. That's really tough. When someone goes to a Toyota dealership, it's really tough to sell them a Lamborghini. That's, so generally we want people, our clients are coming at us and they want that. So then we give it to them. I think it's really hard to go into a project. Now, there's been things where we've been able to upsell or the client's like, oh, there's this thing I've been thinking about maybe doing something over here. And, you can bring up gloss as an option, but generally that's not how it happens. My Venus Lake is really blue today. Right now we are using what is it? The Wagner they sell at Home Depot. It's like $150. It's a phenomenal for really fine finish spraying. The Wagner they sell at Home Depot, that's like our go-to Wagner system. You know, the less you pay for a paint sprayer, generally the better the paint sprayer sprays. So we are loving, I wish someone could tell me the name of that $150 paint sprayer from Home Depot. No, I'm just kidding. It's funny because Wagner forever, I always thought of Wagner as those crappy paint sprayers targeted at homeowners. But what I found is Wagner also makes an incredibly high quality pump that's used in a lot of the high-end commercial and industrial facilities, and they make this incredibly robust equipment. So we are using an icebreaker, actually 1840. Might have to get a Cobra at some point. I'm not sure how and if a Cobra makes sense. Knowing me, we'll probably eventually end up with one, but that's not anywhere near the top of our list of tools. Like, I don't need any more sprayers. Like, I got all the sprayers I could possibly handle. We were really lucky. We got to use our Santa sprayer this weekend, spraying my country club. There was a little bit of a COVID scare there, so we went in and we sprayed disinfectant, and it went really well. And that pump was pretty awesome. The ability, just having it's so nice in a larger space when you have your high boy pump and the 5-gallon bucket moves around with your sprayer. You get so used to the little guys, you pick them up and move them, and they're such a pain compared to just like wheeling a nice high boy. So yeah, we are using a Wagner GM 4700 gun. Really big fan of that gun. Nothing but good things to say about it. We are using a Icebreaker 1840 pump. Requires a lot of air. And then we have the inline paint heater that we have been experimenting with. We use it with the Eco. The project that we did, we used that gloss ceiling. We chose not to use the heater on because we just didn't have the flexibility of testing. The stakes were too high. We were not ready we didn't have the capacities to do the testing needed to confidently heat our paint on site. That was out of our realistic window of keeping our risk profile low. What a ridiculous thing I just said. I don't know, maybe it made sense. Risk profile, just keeping the risk low. Let's see. Do you have growth plans for next year? I plan to grow into our 8 painters. I might go to 9, possibly 10. We might add a third person to 1, maybe 2 of our 2-person crews, 2-person teams. But honestly, I'm really looking to grow into our team size as it is now. I'm looking to build the demand and raise our hourly rates again, so we can get to be a more profitable company. So Johnny, I'm sure as you know, we've grown and at the expense of profit this year and last year. And next year, we're really going to look to be super profitable at the size of company that we are now. And when that happens, and we have we were talking about this analogy this weekend where, it's like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, right? And you, for a long time, I've been going from base camp to base camp to base camp, like up, up, up. And every time I get to that next base camp, I pretty much look around for a minute and I just take off toward the next base camp. And it's time now to sit and rest and recoup at that base camp and get ready to attack the summit, if you will, with a more, like, just taking a longer time to stay at this level, if you will, staying at this level and getting really solid, getting my energy back up in this analogy, and being 100% before I go to that next base camp level. I've really been sprinting up these base camps and being very lean and exhausted, if you will. And now I really want to stay right here, get comfortable, get my stuff together before I go to the next level. Painter guy says, how many of there were you in the beginning? Well, I started with just me. So it was just me, and then it was like me and some people and some random guys, and you know, it was all over the place for years. And then probably 4 or 5 years ago when I started down the fine paints path, it was me and 2 people, and we stayed like that for a while. We got to 3 and myself, and you know, then we went to 5, and then we went back down to 2, and so now we've been very consistently, steadily growing up into where we are now with 4 teams of 2. And like I said, we might add 10. We might go 2 teams of 3 and 2 teams of 2. But that's where we're going to stop, because I can't manage more than 10 people myself. When I say that, I essentially, my point people, I'm really managing 4 people right now. And my 4 leads, if you will, are managing the 4 apprentices, if you will. But not, Arturo and Patrick are a little bit different of a team, but that's why they can handle a 3rd person. And Phil and Hollis, we're looking to interview and hire someone for Phil and Hollis. I actually made an offer to somebody, but that's probably not going to materialize. If it does materialize, till after Christmas. But we're looking to add another level of apprentice to a couple of the teams. But past that, you know, I don't know. We really need to get real fit at this level of base camp. I'm tired of growing fast with not making lots of profit. I really want to put a significant amount of money into savings for the company and stop taking on more and more and more by bootstrapping each time. I want to like kind of get steady for a minute. We're running out of time. I'm getting exhausted, but the Washington Painter said, new constructions or repaints, which do you personally prefer? Massively prefer repaints at this point. Massively prefer repaints. I mean, new construction generally sucks. You're beholden to so many more variables, first of all, right? You're beholden to a bunch of other tradespeople, a bunch of other moving pieces. The architect redesigns something, the designer changes something, and now there's delays. The permitting process doesn't go right, now there's delays. We just did that gloss ceiling a year behind schedule. That building was over a year behind schedule. Yeah, bootstrapping is for the young guys. I'm too old to bootstrap again. We gotta get real solid at this level. I won't go past 10 until we have health insurance. I'm going to put that out there now. I'm not going to go past 10 employees until we have health insurance in our company. And that's probably a year or 2 out, I would guess. But we're getting much more efficient every day, and that means more profitable. And so as we become a profitable company, we can afford to do things like, have health insurance. Yeah, trying to get fit. Oh, I need to get fit physically too, man. Ski season's about to start, and then it's going to be on. I got to start getting ready for ski season already. If they let us on the mountains. Who's going to come to ZK finishing school? We're going to have a retreat. We're going to have a ski weekend for ZKFS. I can't wait, man. Can't wait. Skiing is so fun. Being out in nature, even if you don't ski. We had a couple guys who are going to come for their first time. It's going to be really, really fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Last question. Ari says, what do you think is your most successful or favorite project? Oh man, that's such a hard question. I mean, I would say today it's the glass ceiling that we just finished in Boston. I mean, I haven't even seen it in real life yet. It's killing me, but that project is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I like the stakes could not have been higher, right? This condo is disgustingly expensive. First of all, right? This, like, we're in a high rise. Like, you make a big mistake here, you catch a rag on fire, you do it, like, the stakes are so freaking high, right? So right there, and all eyes are on us, right? You go into a project and you take over a room the way we take over a room to do gloss, like, man, everyone's watching. Everyone is watching. And so the pressure was on there. You know, the designer had originally wanted to bring someone in from out of state to do the work. So again, the pressure's on. You know, they've never heard of us. The GC went to bat for us. So, you know, again, we're being held to a very high standard from a very skilled company from New York City. And the fact that we were able to pull it off, I would say as near flawlessly as we could have ever imagined. I mean, just unbelievable execution by Phil, Hollis, and Jessica. Unbelievable. And, you know, execution by our whole company, because we got to the point, like, in order to get to the point to be able to do the project, we've had to work so hard as a company and as a team of people to get to the level where we could even be considered to do a project like that. You know, that's a whole team effort. And you know, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears on my part to be able to get to the point where we could ever get someone to allow us in on that high stakes of a job. I'm so grateful that we were able to do that. I'm so grateful for the people, the team that we had that was able to execute, and all their hard work and their hours of commute and their time, you know, waiting for elevators and the stress that was there, having never done this before. You know, I'm so grateful for all those things. So, you know, that project, because it just happened and it turned out the way it did, I'm so proud of our team and our company. You know, and the ZK name is been cemented one step higher up. So really, really, really grateful that we got to do that project, and really, really happy that and so proud of our team for executing, because there's not I couldn't imagine a higher stakes thing and a higher stakes project than that project. So I'm gonna move, and this thing's gonna go out of focus, right? Oh, maybe not. But again, everybody, thanks for watching. Everyone who came to ZK Finishing School, thank you so much for coming. I think I added a lot of value to a lot of people. You guys, I'll make a post later today at ZKFS Instagram with the team picture. We're all wearing our face shields and staying safe from COVID. And you guys can ask them what they thought about it. I'm having a hard time wanting to market ZK Finishing School very hard. And that's my own like mental BS that I have to get out of my own way about. But I'm really, really proud of how this school, if you will, is forming. We're just in the early stages, and I have big ideas and big dreams for the amount of value that we'll add to our trade. I think everyone so far has given me the positive feedback that this is helping to elevate the trade, elevate the craft. Elevate the trade is someone else's slogan. I had no idea. I looked and I had this, like, started doing it. We put it on the shirts and on the Instagram and the hashtag. And then there's another company that's doing elevating the trade, which I love it. Like, the trade, I'm not the only one who saw that the trade could use elevating, right? I think we can all agree that our craft could use elevating. And it's everyone listening right now, and all the people in my world and on Instagram that come to finishing school and are trying to do better every day. I've been trying to do better every day since I got into this business. And yeah, we're trying to build the faith in our trade. We're trying to build trust. We're trying to have it so it becomes, you know, a painter becomes synonymous with a trustworthy individual passion and, professionalism. And I wish that was the case, but I don't think the average human being thinks of a painter that way. A lot of the people I speak to, the average people I speak to, don't see painters in that way. And this school and this community that we're building is there to the people who are trying to go to the next level. We're trying to help them. And there's a number of people out there doing that. And I commend all of them for doing it. I think that we need, I sure can't do it myself. A bunch of people can't do it themselves. We all need to be upping our level. And I love to learn. So all the stuff I've learned, I'm love to share. And I think the idea of constant improvement is so huge. And I'm really proud of what we're building here. And I'm so grateful that I get to do it. What a time we live in. And hopefully in 10 years we have made a serious dent in that negative image of the painter. And I think social media is doing a ton for us to positively portray the passion that painters have. And painters who want to do better can look to social media and we can see what other people are doing around the country, and it helps us get better. Before, we only saw what our boss was doing, essentially, right? I only saw a painting done by the companies I worked for. So I had a very limited view of the trade, right? I got to see 2 or 3 paint companies I ever worked for and the way they did things. That was my entire perception of painting and what it could be. I can see thousands of paint contractors and the way they're approaching their projects through social media. So I have a much greater, broader view of what the trade can look like. And I've learned so much. Mikey from Wet Paint CT, that was one of the changes Mike made. I think that looks so good, Wet Paint CT. He said, how the heck are you still going? I don't know, man. I'm about to drop down and fall asleep. But it's that, I'm so invigorated talking about this stuff. I love it. I'm so passionate about our trade and our craft. And I just want to, it gets me going. It's easy to sit here and do this after this long weekend because I get warmed up and I get talking and my brain starts firing and thinking about any positive impact I might be able to have. It gets me going. People come to ZKFS and I think it's pretty clear how passionate I am about this stuff. And I really like hearing, it's cool to hear from people that I'm the same person that they see here in real life. Because I am. I think it's very anti-fragile. One of my favorite authors and a great book is Nassim Taleb's Anti-Fragile. And a great way we talked about this weekend to be anti-fragile, the opposite of fragility, right? Over time, we're stronger. We like time to go on. We like to take more pitches. The best way to be anti-fragile, one of the best ways, is to be the same person all the time, everywhere. And we talked a lot about that this weekend, about thinking about how you act behind closed doors, because you shouldn't be saying things you wouldn't say in public. Generally, I think it's a bad idea to talk about certain things in a way that you wouldn't feel comfortable talking about them in front of people in the world, right? Because now you're being two people. And as much as that's easy, that's not the adult best practice way to live life, right? I want to be the same person I am in front of you guys as I am with my wife, as I am with my friends, my family, in behind closed doors. I think that makes it's like telling the truth. Mikey kept talking about that this weekend. When you tell the truth, it's so much easier. You don't have to worry, right? It's so much easier to just be a good person all the time, instead of pretend. Like if I was on here pretending to be this person and then I go home and I'm not that. It's a lot harder to be good all the time. You just, it's like people say be yourself, but be your best self. And be your best self when no one's watching, so it becomes easier to be your best self when people are watching, because you're just being the same person. So we had a couple of defining moments talking about some stuff this weekend that related to that, and I was really happy that stuff came out, because I do believe in it. What are you doing the right thing for the right reason? What are you doing when no one's watching? Because that's gonna you're going to have to overcome that stuff to be a good person in public. And we talked a lot about how you spend your mental energy, right? And minimizing the waste and being effective with our mental energy. You know, I would argue that it's a loser mentality to think about how can I save 3 cents on gas. Like if you're someone who's like trying to figure out how to find a cheaper gas price and driving and spending calories and thinking about where should I go find the cheaper gas, that's not a winning mentality. That's a lot of mental energy spent to save a couple pennies. Spend that mental energy to figure out how to make some dollars, you know, and thinking about how we spend our mental energy was a big part of what we talked about this weekend, and it's something I think about a lot. And I'm always trying to get better at it because I'm definitely not great at it, but I'm trending upwards, and that's all we can do. And I'm rambling now. So again, thanks guys for watching. All of these episodes, someone the other day didn't realize all of these episodes are on iTunes under ZK Live. They're all on YouTube under ZK Live. You can watch all of these and listen to all of these. So please go on there, rate, review, subscribe, do all those awesome things so I feel like I'm not speaking into a void. And again, thank you everybody for your questions. Thank you everyone who came to ZKFS this weekend. And everybody go out and crush it this week. We're going to have another awesome week at ZK Painting. And I'm sure all of you will too. I hope all of you have a great weekend, a great week. Thanks, guys.